I was a little nervous to follow the legal luminaries who have just spoke, to be followed by some eminent academics later. But the subject of fair investigation is something very close to my heart. And I have always found, as a police officer, it was extremely disturbing for me when someone was wrongly framed in a case. I dared or I gained some confidence to be here because I have a subjective feeling. I emphasize the word subjective, that whenever I wield a legal power, I have used that power to resist the pressures and temptations to distort the investigative power to frame somebody as an accused. It is only that confidence which which compels me or which allows me to be in this platform. But when I think of this subject, framing somebody, framing an innocent in a case, I recall the words of an eminent Indian writer who hails from Kerala, a Jnanpith awardee, Mr. D. Vasudevan Nair. I listened to him a couple of decades ago when I was an SP. He was addressing police officers and he said, denial of justice is the ultimate tragedy in human life. He was talking on the work of police officers, and this is what he said. I will repeat. Denial of justice is the ultimate tragedy in human life. I think without going to Article 21 or Fundamental Rights, Part 3, or the pronouncement by the constitutional courts, one can visualize, imagine the agony of a person who gets wrongly framed in a case. Forget about major criminal cases. Even when one is charged with a petty offense, it's an agonizing experience for him. When you are framed wrongly, one, the suffering part of it, and more importantly, as a human being, you feel miserable before the powers that are. And that feeling, that situation, that saps you of the vital of being a human being. I've seen that. I've dealt with that in my work as a police officer. So there can be no two opinion that getting a person, an innocent, wrongly framed in a case, it is something which must be avoided. Having said that, how do we achieve that? The honorable justices have spoken, many valid points are made. As a police officer, I have always found that the choice between innocence and guilt, even in the best of circumstances, is sometimes it's very, very difficult. And in our system, the innocence and guilt are something judicially pronounced, rightly so. I have come across a number of experiences where, even without any extraneous considerations, going by sound professional considerations, as expected of a conscientious officer, the choice was difficult. I would like to give an example, but for the sake of objectivity, I will not take a personal example. I will take an example from the autobiography written by Justice K.T. Thomas. Doesn't need any introduction at all. His autobiography titled Honeybees of Solomon. In that one episode, he narrates very passionately. He describes it as a crisis which he faced in his judicial life. He says he deals with a case which he had to handle as a judge of the High Court. It was about the death of a sub-inspector who was shot dead in a police station. The incident was initially investigated by the crime branch of the state. They were veering around a conclusion it to be a case of suicide. Then there was a lot of sensation around that incident. The matter was transferred to CBI. CBI found it to be a case of murder and conspiracy. And 6 policemen were charged with murder and conspiracy. The lower court, the trial court, convicted 4 of them and awarded sentence for life. 2 were acquitted. The matter went in appeal to the High Court before a 2 judges bench. There were 2 appeals, one by the convicted policeman and another by CBI against the acquittal and also for enhancement. The 2 judges who heard the case, they came to diametrically opposite conclusions. One of the judges found all 6 of them guilty. Not only that, one of the 6 was awarded death penalty. Whereas the brother judge found all of them innocent. He found there was no homicide. It was not a case of homicide. Then the matter went to a 3-judge bench where Justice K.T. Thomas was the senior most judge. He deals in great detail in that book, but to cut a long story short, Justice K.T. Thomas says it was the biggest crisis they faced. It was a difficult choice to decide it to be a case of homicide or suicide. After spending considerable time, making a lot of effort, applying all the finest legal principles, they arrive at a conclusion that it was not a homicide and acquits all 6 of them. He doesn't leave there. In fact, he waits for the Supreme Court. The matter reached the highest court, and the apex court also confirms the verdict of the 3 judges bench. In fact, Justice K.T. Thomas even goes further, and then based on material he got to know later, he reassures himself that it was a case of suicide. Now let us examine the question how difficult it was. The decision whether it was a case of suicide or homicide, it was so difficult. And 6 persons, how much suffering they have gone through. Now, can we say that the investigating agency had framed these people wrongly? But their suffering was there, and it was something which should have been avoided. The point I would like to make is, in the best of circumstances, with no extraneous evil influences, for a conscientious and professional police officer, as well as for other members of the judicial criminal justice system, often it's a very difficult choice. And what need not be anything, but one only has to have the common sense to say that we function not in the best of circumstances. So that raises some fundamental questions. How do we ensure that in the process of investigation and through other processes, innocents are not framed? Our legal system, as a police officer, I have seen it has got some safeguards. Honorable Supreme Court has laid down in a well-known judgment, Sakri Vasu versus State of UP, the role of superior officers as well as the role of the magistrate. The Honorable Court has laid down that the magistrate under section 156(3) has a right authority to ensure proper investigation. He has a right to monitor investigation. He doesn't have a right to investigate, but he has a right to monitor investigation and authority to ensure that proper investigation is carried out. It even talks about concomitant powers which may be necessary to ensure proper investigation. But honorable justices themselves have spoken how far it is being met in the field. As a police officer, I personally feel that very often when it comes to framing people, knowingly, I am not talking about the kind of situation Justice K.T. Thomas explained. Knowingly, I get an impression that often there is a tacit understanding in the hierarchy. Section 36 of the CRPC laid down the responsibility of supervisory officers. Unlike other functions in the criminal justice system, when it comes to investigation, the senior officers are vested with the power under 36 CRPC, an authority to intervene, which even the judiciary doesn't do. But often there is some kind of silence. I'm not talking about active collaboration. So I feel within the police department and also by the civil society, we have to activate this potential of the provision 36 CRPC as well as the potential of the monitoring by the magistrates, which is reiterated time and again by the constitutional courts. It is the citizens who will have to force the senior officers to invoke these powers given to them by law, that responsibility. Now, going further, I think to ensure the fairness in investigation, to avoid this kind of manipulation of investigative powers, one of the solutions can be adoption of technology in a big way. I've seen in my own experience as a police officer, technology has come to the aid of many innocent in many cases where somebody was trying to frame a person for extraneous or whatever reasons. For shortage of time, I won't go into details. So, induction of technology in the policing investigative work, I think that will go a long way to check some of the manipulations in investigation. Today, every human activity gets recorded, and technology can be an aid to ensure that the entire investigative process is digitally recorded and the chances of manipulation are minimized. This is one area which we must explore. And another point which I feel is in our system, while working in the field also I have experienced the victim of crime, who is the most interested in ensuring that the right persons are prosecuted and the innocent is not prosecuted. His role in our system is very, very minimal. In spite of the recent amendments to the law, he remains largely a spectator when it comes to investigation of initial stages, at the stage of framing of charge, or bail, or sentence, parole, at no stage the victim is heard. I think the role of the victim in our system and who has a stake, who has the maximum stake in the whole matter. I think this is something which must be recognized and which we must uh, expand further. And another suggestion which I would make is, or which I have experienced, there has always been some kind of conflict which I've seen between functional autonomy of the police officers who investigate and making them accountable. There can be no doubt that accountability for wrong actions must be there. But at the same time, For police officers who discharge their duties conscientiously in a professional manner, how do we protect them? How do we protect their legitimate interests? The other day, I was talking to a friend of mine from another state. He was telling me about a well-known case in that state where he took exemplary action to ensure that the guilty are brought to book. He said, for that sake, I lost my position, uh, an important position. Now, one can say that, in fact, I appreciated him for that. I said, yes, you have done the right thing. What is the position worth if you can't do justice to the victims? But the problem is when youngsters who enter the system, if they get constantly penalized for doing the right thing, a man who is going to arrest the culprit, suppose he is going to suffer adverse consequences. Think of a judge who is going to decide on the culpability of a person. Based on that, if he is to suffer, we can talk idealism and all those things are right. But a person who enters the service, he has a legitimate aspirations. But for doing the right thing in a conscientious manner, in a professional manner, there has to be enough protection. We have to think of those materials also, mechanisms also. At the same time, accountability. I think without accountability, which is again reiterated by the honorable courts, the Kishan Bhai versus State of Gujarat, Honorable Supreme Court itself dealt with that subject, but it's very rarely involved. There are a number of balancing mechanisms, like the police complaints authority, which we have in Kerala, headed by a judge of the High Court, former judge of the High Court. Such mechanisms we should think of evolving to deal with accountability kind of issues. Another aspect, one more suggestion which I would like to make is our procedural law is very clear, everyone understands, but it's very broadly provided. Within the procedural law, I think within the framework of that and of the constitution, we should think of evolving protocols for investigation. And those protocols must include this subject. How do you safeguard an innocent person against getting framed? Definite protocols must be introduced so that it is something which can be scrutinized by the accountability mechanisms, and persons who act at the behest of vested interests to frame innocence, they are brought to book. I think such mechanisms has to be evolved within the framework of existing law. If you are able to work on those lines, these are some of the suggestions which I would like to make based on my own experience. But in the end, I would like to say that whatever mechanisms and other things which we may evolve, one to protect the conscientious professionals and also to book the those who collude and do illegal framing. I think an empowered citizen who is ever vigilant, he is an essential component. He has to be an essential part for ensuring justice. As long as we have such citizens in this country, and I hope that we have, and maybe even this process which we are doing is in the end to empower citizens so that they are ever vigilant. As long as there are such citizens in this country, we have reason for hope. And that's the optimism I cherish as an ex police officer. Thank you.